for the quality. Okay, we're going to start our next class, and we're finally moving on to Rule 5. We spent quite a bit of time on Rule 4. It was quite an extensive rule. Rule 4 dealt with the creation of thought forms. Now, as we go through this white magic, sometimes it sounds like it's for somebody that's really advanced in esoteric arts, yet the principles in it is usable for just about anything. As he says, these principles apply to the creation by a solar logos, a planetary logos, a man, or even a man, average human being creating something. If you're going to create a business, you follow the basic rules to date. And the rules to date have told us to create something, whether it be a business, an enterprise, a spiritual endeavor, you're a part of the plan of the great ones that you've perceived or whatever. First of all, you have to create a plan in your mind. And this is what's called the building the thought form. You have to meditate and figure out how this is going to materialize and approximately what it's going to look like when it does materialize. And so that's the first step. If you're going to build a business, you have to create some type of business plan. You got to get a product, figure out how you're going to sell the product, figure out how you're going to deliver it. You got to get all these things figured out in your mind, and that's like building the thought form. So the next thing you got to do is the hard part, and that is you got to actually put the business together. And this is what the white magician has to do. Once he gets the ideas all set in his mind, then he has to bring it down into physical reality, and that is the basis of Rule 5, and let me just read it to you. 3 things engage the solar angel before the sheath created passes downward: the condition of the waters, the safety of the one who thus creates, and steady contemplation. Thus are the heart, the throat, and the eye aligned for triple service. Okay, the heart corresponds to the condition of the waters. The throat corresponds to the safety of the one who thus creates. And the eye corresponds to steady contemplation. Thus are the heart, the throat, and the eye aligned for triple service. This triple service must transpire in order to cause the thought form to materialize on the physical plane, and DK goes through the various problems that disciples have in bringing down this thought form. First of all, he talks a little bit about thought forms, how they're the same, whether it's the same principle, whether it's a logos of some kind, your soul. You are actually a thought form of the soul. So before you were even born, the soul visualized your life and what was going to materialize. And then it had to successfully help to develop your physical body in your mother's womb so that you could actually be born. And then it had to send a portion of itself into that physical body, which is you. And so you became kind of a dream of the soul. And when we die, we wake up and we eventually return to the soul after going through some etheric zones. Okay, man, on the other hand, just like our soul creates a thought form and puts attention on it. Now, because the soul is putting attention on its thought form, which is us, it takes attention away from the kingdom of the soul that it resides in. And so it still has some attention available there, but it has to keep a certain amount of focus on your life to keep it going and vitalized. Then man, as he creates his thought form, he expresses himself through his works and by his surroundings. Now, he points out that creation by white magic happens on mental levels. The disciple meditates and brings the thought into manifestation. He says, then he ends by saying, the word becomes flesh. And remember, the word is more than just sounding a word, like finding some words out of a dictionary and putting them together. A word can be a whole book. It can be a concept. A word is vibration. So a word, an esoteric word is a concept in your mind that you're trying to materialize, and to make the word flesh. That is the great miracle that we're looking to accomplish. And like I say, something we can understand is like creating a business. If you create a business, the word for creating a business is the basic idea, how it's going to work, and then to make it flesh is to make the business actual, so it is established and actually performing a service and functioning correctly. Okay. He says this fifth rule touches three basic factors, as we says: the condition of the waters, the safety of the one who thus creates, and steady contemplation. As I said, these are the heart, the throat, and the eye. And he says a disciple should begin each day with thinking about how he's going to go about materializing this thought form. Now, all of us have things that we want to do, right? So the Tibetan, one problem with studying the Tibetan, they sound so his words sound so deep that we may think they don't apply to us. But look at it this way: each one of us has something we want to accomplish. Rick was just telling us a bunch of stuff he wants to do, for instance. And oh, Blaine, good to see you.
How you doing?
Yeah. Well, good to have you here. Glad you're on. Glad to see your great face there.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Now I know Blaine's got a lot of things he wants to do. So, but all of us have something that we want to accomplish, and so these principles apply to us, whether we just be a regular guy trying to create a business, or trying to write a book, or trying to establish a good relationship. Whatever we want to do, there's something. Now, all of us here being seekers, we should have some goal to further the plan of light, to further our ability to serve, and to move the world ahead at least another inch or so because of something that we have personally done. So each of us should have some goal to be of service to humanity in some way. So then we want to materialize this, and in materializing this, we have quite a few difficulties to surmount. First of all, the condition of the waters. What do you suppose he means when he talks about the condition of the waters is what the Creator, one of the main three things that the Creator must take into account? Any ideas on that?
Stabilization of the mind.
Yeah, yeah. And what does water symbolize?
Thinking processes, the mind, the
emotions.
Emotions, right, right. And the mind is a key to stabilizing the emotions, however. So, yeah, he talked about there's all kinds of negative emotions settle in that the Creator must handle. So let's talk about something everybody can understand. That would be like creating a business. Okay, you got the thought form all figured out to create the business, but then there's all kinds of negative emotions that enter in that may prevent you from being successful. What's one of the main ones that interfere with a successful business?
Fear.
What was that?
Fear.
Fear? Yeah, fear. That's a big one.
Fear.
Fear keeps you. A lot of people have dreamed about having their own business their entire life, and they haven't really taken the major step. They've even got it figured out how it would be successful, but they haven't done it because of what? They're afraid, right? They're
They
afraid.
fear
They're
or you
afraid they
doubt.
won't make enough money. They're afraid they won't survive. They're afraid they won't do it right. Fear is a really big item, and that's a condition of the waters the white magician must take into account is fear. He must say, well, I've created this thought form. Is fear going to prevent me from materializing it? Or am I going to go ahead and override any fear? Okay. What else interferes with the condition of the waters?
All the naysayers.
Doubt.
Right? Right? Negative people. What else?
Procrastination.
Procrastination. All kinds of there's all kinds of negative feelings, from hatred to you have to work with people, and people are irritating to work with sometimes. I've had a business for most of my life, and believe me, you have to be very patient. I tell you, one thing that required a lot of patience was when I was selling children's books. I had those little kids. You could tell when you enter a home and you start pitching these books, and you could tell the good parents from the bad parents almost instantly. The bad parents would say, just let their kids shout and scream, and you couldn't hardly get the sales pitch out. I had these really expensive broadsides. They cost quite a bit of money, and they would last forever if they were treated well. Remember this one house I went to, there was this, I put all these broadsides out of all these books I was selling. And there's this little bratty kid, and he was on this tricycle, and he kept running back and forth on him. And the parent says, oh, I don't know what's getting into Johnny today. He's really rambunctious today. Johnny, you shouldn't be running over that guy's stuff. And they didn't do anything. I felt like I went and picked him up, and I moved him to another portion of the room, and probably irritated the parents. But then I continued my presentation, and back he comes with a bike running back and forth over my stuff. And I tell you, kids like that, they tested my patience quite a bit. Another thing that tested my patience was pitching Mormons. By the time I was done, they always wanted to pray about whether God wanted them to buy the books, and God never told them to buy the books. God must hate children's books, because God never told one Mormon family to buy the children's books. But anyway, people take a lot of patience. And in my other business where we did signs and printing, we'd have people come in and try to sell us on multi-levels and get rich quick schemes that they wanted us to get on. And people require a lot of patience, but we just had to be patient with them. And if you aren't patient with them, you get a lot of bad press if you give people a bad taste in their mouth. So it's important that you handle people with patience, and a lot of people do require quite a bit of patience. Okay. He says, fear must be replaced by peace. And the second thing, another thing that creates a lot of problem is questioning expectancy. In other words, a lot of people expect the worst to happen. And to have a good condition of the waters, a person needs to have faith that they can solve any problem that comes up. So if you're in a business, you may have problems come up. You may have you always will have extra expenses come up now and then that are unexpected, that you were not anticipating. Well, when they come up, you have to handle them and figure that everything is going to work out for the best as long as you put your attention on things. And the third major thing is for a person that's progressing on soul levels, he needs to replace material desire with soul qualities. So the disciple, if he's in business, then he has to concentrate on the material side. But if he's doing something that's going to be of spiritual service to humanity, he needs to replace this material desire with a desire to enjoy the peaceable things of the kingdom, so to speak. The peaceable things of the kingdom, the peace that passes all understanding, the sharing of love, the spiritual energies. These qualities must become more desirable than the desires that the world gives us. So that's what he says must be. We must replace the higher desires with the lower desires with the higher. These three words, peace, assurance, and right aspiration, when understood and experienced in the life of every day, will bring about that right condition of the waters, which will ensure the survival of every thought form.
By right condition of the waters, the thought just popped in my head is like they talk about, come on in, the water's fine. In other words, the waters have been made to where they are fun again.
Yeah.
And when people are having problem with they fear this or fear that, it's like, well, of course you do, and that's part of the life is a roller coaster ride that you're supposed to be enjoyable. You know, it's like, so think of it. Oh, fear. Oh, that's no different than whoa, raising your hand. But we humans love fearful things. So we get our kick out of it. So enjoy the game. And you'll do fine. It's like fear. What's fear? It's another hump in the roller coaster.
Well, it's interesting you say, come on in, the water's fine. Yeah, some of our common phrases are kind of esoteric when they're applied through the law of correspondences. So the white magician, when the condition of the waters is right, then his soul says, come on in, the water is fine. So yeah, we must have generate that peace and goodwill, and overcome the little irritations that plague us all from time to time.
Yeah, it's a mental thing. You have to your mind has to tell you or take control of the situation and say, this is not fearful, this is fun. This is funful.
Right. And the condition of the waters is associated with the heart energies. Now, remember, the true heart energies is higher than the regular feelings of the solar plexus. So you want to bring those solar plexus up and have them be governed by the higher love of Christ, so to speak. Okay, the next thing of concern in manifesting the thought form is the safety of the one who thus creates. Well, how can you be in danger? He says, the creator is often slain by his own thought form. One way he becomes slain by his own thought form is he becomes obsessed or fanatical. Now, we were talking about a business, for instance, is one creation everybody can understand. And this sometimes happens in business. You ever meet an Amway salesman? An Amway person? Are they obsessed or what?
I was one time.
And a lot of these multi-level people become really, they get involved they think they're going to make $1 million in a couple months, and they get really obsessed, or maybe some get rich quick scheme, maybe some stock somebody wants you to buy or something, or maybe some investment that makes a high percentage, like what's his name that ripped everybody off? It turns out to be a Ponzi scheme. And so people get obsessed and fanatical. That's one of the problems that can destroy the thought form, is he gets too obsessed.
It's kind of
the
the message in the fable of King Midas
yeah
and his golden touch. He loved gold so much, and then he was given the power that everything he touched would turn to gold. And it's like, got to where, it's like, it's kind of hard to eat gold, and, kind of hard to wash your hands in gold. And
yeah right
it ruined his life.
right. He says the second thing that creates a problem. Now this concerns the safety of the one who thus creates. The disciple is often rushed and does not take time to think things out. He steps on toes, makes mistakes that can destroy the creation, and it can even lead to his own death. Now it's interesting, in Isaiah he says, "He that believeth doth not make haste." Now, this is one of the problems with people when people get on the spiritual path. Boy, they figure, one mistake a lot of them make is they figure they're on their last life when they probably got quite a few lives to go yet before they get perfected. And they want to just rush and become a spiritual master overnight. Or if there's some project or group they're building, they want the group to materialize really fast, and they're not willing to put in the patient work. And if it doesn't materialize within a short period of time, then they're off and they're doing something else, trying to materialize another thought form that doesn't come to pass. Now, the safety of the one who thus creates. Many founders of different groups and religions have suffered by going to jail or death. One famous one is, of course, Joseph Smith, founder of the Mormon Church, and he made several mistakes near the end of his life when he press was somebody, an apostate member, published a bunch of accusations against him. Rather than just dealing with him, he, being the mayor of Nauvoo, he ordered the press to be destroyed. And this caused a tremendous uproar that led to his death. Now, the governor put out a warrant for his arrest, and he got a revelation as to how to escape. That he was told to go west to the Rocky Mountains. And as they were, he took off, and he was in the process of going there when he got a message sent by his wife telling him that everyone was calling him a coward for deserting the flock. And he told his brother, "Yeah, but if I go back," he says, "we'll be slaughtered." And then his brother says, "Well, we should go back. We've always been protected through everything else we've been through." He says, "I think we'll be protected. Let's go back." And he says, "No," he says, "if we go back, we'll be killed." And his brother says, "Well, if you don't go back, I'll go back without you." And that's what turned him around. And he says, "All right, we'll go back. If my life is worth nothing to my friends, it's worth nothing to me." And thus the condition of the waters was really disturbed at that time, and that led to his death. And so he had several disturbances to the waters that prevented the the materialization of the creation that he was attempting to do. And it would be interesting to see what the Mormon church would have been like if he hadn't been killed. It'd been, because Brigham Young took it quite a bit different direction than he was leading it at the time. And same thing with Jesus, except that was part of the plan with Jesus, was to get killed so he could overcome death. But the condition of the waters, he really disturbed the waters wherever he went. You know, for a really peaceable guy like Jesus, you would think that he would have no problems. But all he had to do was speak to the authorities and say something they didn't approve of, and they didn't like him. And when he raised Lazarus from the dead, the authority says, boy, if we let this guy continue, the whole world will be fallen, and we got to do something. Instead of being amazed by bringing somebody back from the dead, their concern was well, we got to do something about this guy or we're going to lose our power. So their power was more important to them than the witness of the great miracle. Okay. And the Tibetan winds up this point with this. He says, thus it will be seen why in all systems of true occult training, the emphasis is laid on right thinking, loving desire, pure, clean living. Only thus then can the creative work be carried forward with safety, and only thus can the thought form pass downward into objectivity and be a constructive agent on the plane of human existence. Okay, the third thing that is necessary for the thought form to materialize is steady contemplation. After the disciple has a vision of the creation or plan, he must keep focused on it. And this is a real biggie. This has been a problem in my life and different things I've been creating. And an important lesson that I've had to learn is steady contemplation. And it was really brought home to me when I was in real estate. I was selling houses, and then I got the bright idea. My broker started selling mobile homes, and he started making quite a bit of money. Mobile home parks. You sell a mobile home park, you make a pretty nice commission because they go for a lot more than just a house. So I thought that sounded like a good idea. So I decided to go into selling mobile home parks, and I went and listed a bunch of them. And within about a month, I had 3 mobile home parks sold. And I thought, wow, this is great. This will give me enough money to live on for a couple of years. I'm going to sell these parks. After these close, I'm going to write a book. So I figured with 3 of them in the 3 of them being sold and earnest money and everything on them, just waiting for them to close, I figured the money was in the bank. And so I took my eye off my business and I started writing a book. It was called The Shift. It was about the shift of the axis. And the main character was had a revelation about it and was preparing for it and everything. And so the book was coming along pretty good. And then as it turned out, all 3 of them fell through. And I couldn't believe it. It was just like taking my attention off of my business just caused it to just fall apart. And all 3 of them fell through. And what I had to do was start over from scratch. And it was like I was starting over with never been in real estate before. I mean, it was just crazy. And so that taught me an important lesson. Energy follows thought. And that was the last time I took my eye off the ball of something I wanted to create. Because creation is more than just the actual labor. It's to steady contemplation. Steady contemplation, keep your the old statement is keep your eye on the ball, and there's a lot of truth to that. You have to keep your eye on the ball, keep your eye on the end result, because energy follows thought. And since that time, I've seen a lot of people make that same mistake I made, that they just don't keep their attention focused on the end result. And unless you keep your attention focused there, it just unravels, because the creation, the materialization of the thought form is more than just things you physically do. It's the energy that you project from your mind and your will actually help to give the thought form structure and help to materialize the desire that you're attempting to manifest. Well, that's kind of interesting. Anybody had a experience like that before, where you just take your eye off the ball and everything falls apart?
That's a given there, but I was just going to say, you know, and it's not like putting your mind on, keeping your mind on something like a motor running a wheel. You can keep that wheel spinning with a repetitive push. You know, it's like every day at the same time, think about, oh yeah, give it another spin. You can store a lot of energy in a wheel with little tiny pushes. If you give enough pushes, that wheel will get spinning faster and faster and faster, and become gyroscopic and stand by itself and everything else, just from a little, you know. Same thing with pushing somebody on a swing. It doesn't take much of a push to get that person to where he's, well, as far out as that swing will go. You know, just from the dad is pushing the kid on the swing, a little push each time, adding to the momentum of the project, kind of thing.
Right, and when you keep when you keep your attention focused on something, you also are aware when a correction needs to be made. Now, if you just drive your car to the grocery store, how many times do you have to make a correction as you're just driving down the road?
Hundreds.
Right, you make a correction about once every second or two. You have to make sure that car is being steered the right direction. And if we're going to manifest one of our thought forms, if we take our attention off, it's just like letting go of the steering wheel. We have to make all kinds of little subtle corrections, not only physical, but in our thinking, to be able to manifest whatever it is that's in our mind that we want to create. So it's an interesting principle to think about. Then the Tibetan talks about accepted disciples. It's kind of a little bit off the main topic, but he makes this interesting statement. This was written and published in 1934. He says there are only about 400 accepted disciples in the world at this time. That is, men and women who really know they are disciples and know what their work is and are doing it. There are nevertheless many hundreds out of the present generation of young people who will stand on the verge of acceptance, and thousands upon the probationary path. So there are about 400 accepted disciples in the whole world in 1934. Makes you wonder how many there are today. Probably, if there's 400 then, there's probably at least 1,000 today throughout the whole world. And maybe that's why it's so hard to find people to create a molecule with, because they're accepted disciples are few and far in between. But what we want to do is bring everyone up to accepted discipleship that is possible. He says the disciple will not focus on astral or psychic qualities, but on mind and the soul. And this is another thing that hinders the disciple in his creation, is he will be often be sidetracked by developing psychic abilities. He'll be enraptured by channeling, by seeing astral things. And but he points out that the disciple has to, for a period of time, he may have to let these type of abilities go below the threshold of consciousness. He says they can be brought back after he develops the mind and soul contact. He can bring back these psychic abilities, but if he's on the path of discipleship, this will not be his focus, because this can be one of the things that is a danger to the white magician. And a lot of people think that psychics, people with a lot of psychic ability, are really advanced, but a lot of that is on the astral level, and it's not very accurate either. Most people in the psychism make a lot of mistakes, make a lot of false prophecies. Matter of fact, almost everybody that makes specific prophecies, they turn out to be incorrect. When I see a person that claims to be in communication with the masters or God or something, I read their material, and first thing I check to see if they've made any predictions. And 9 times out of 10, they have made predictions, and 10 times out of 10, they've made predictions that haven't materialized. Yet they have an excuse why they haven't materialized, because, well, the masters change, or God changed his mind because circumstance changed or whatever. And so they have a really good excuse why the prophecies didn't come true, and their followers just seem to still support them.
Well, part of the difficulty of receiving plans, we all see these higher things through our own personal rose-colored glasses. We add coloring to some of these things that are coming in, and that can, that muddies the waters, basically.
Yeah. A lot of, if you want to be a true prophet, just take the predictions that are out there and say they're not going to come true. And 9 times out of 10, you'll be, people will say, wow, you're a prophet, man. I had a gal a couple of years ago that was really enthused about my work. And she says, you realize that Planet X is going to hit us in 6 months, don't you? I mean, how come you're not warning people about this? And I says, because it's not going to hit us in 6 months. I says, there's nothing to worry about. And it got her mad. I never heard from her again. She just went away. I mean, she was with me for about 2 years and supported me and communicated really friendly. But when I told her that prediction was not going to come true, she got mad. And then when I was proven to be right, when the Planet X didn't hit us, she didn't come back. And I thought, well, maybe she'll come back if Planet X doesn't show up. But no, I never saw her again. But it's interesting how people, that's one thing that you can really tell if somebody's in the astral zone or not. Look in their writings, see if they made any predictions. If somebody's on the mental level at all, they'll be real hesitant about making predictions because the future is fairly fluid. The great ones know the end from the beginning, but they don't know everything in between. So everything in between is pretty hard to predict. And he points out about the importance of developing the intuition. The intuition where the person taps into the soul and get flashes of inspiration. This is one of the most accurate methods of bringing down truth from on high, so to speak. This type of method where the person contacts the soul and evolves the intuition will be much more accurate than developing astral and regular psychic abilities.
Yeah, part of the problem with learning intuition is you have to include the fact that not only do you have to learn to listen to it, but you have to learn to do what it says.
Yeah, yeah. Then he points out too that all of us receive more guidance than we realize. You know, a lot of us think, well, I'm in a dark night of the soul. I'm just going through all these things. But we receive a lot more guidance than we realize. But the problem between us and our soul is there's a lot of layers of illusion between us and the soul, and a lot of lower vibrations that we have to, and static. Static is probably the word I'm looking for. A lot of static that we have to kind of clear away. Remember in the old days, in the 50s, I remember when we got our first TV, sometimes the reception was so bad you could hardly see the picture and you could hardly understand what they were saying. It was so bad sometimes. And that's a little bit the way it is when the person's trying to establish soul contact, and we need to clear away that static. But even though there's static for most of us, there are messages that get through, and more messages than we think. Our soul is working with us and sends us clues in a number of different ways. You may have a dream, you may just get an impression, you may just wake up in the morning saying, hey, I see how to make this thing work or accomplish this thing. And then once in a while you might get something that's obviously something from a higher source. He says when a person is assimilated into the master's group, he has to adjust his vibration. And if you're being assimilated into a group, the vibration will be pretty obvious. You'll feel like something is happening. Has anyone ever here had that happen where you feel like all of a sudden your vibration is a lot stronger than, or you just feel something happening that's affecting your whole being? Have any of you ever gone through anything like that? I bet Melva has. Have you ever had that happen to you, Melva?
Yes. And now you're going to want an example.
If you got one, fine. If not, fine.
Well, I'll tell you about my most recent experience in caring for my father as he started to deteriorate, and I would there would be these junctures, and I would immediately know that what the next step I had to take as far as his medical care was going to be. And it was basically, I had to make these really major decisions, and I felt a surety, a rightness. There was absolutely no doubt in my mind what my next step was going to be, and I also realized that it was going to take a lot of effort on my part to make what needed to happen. And because he had a real swift decline, it took like 6 months, and he died. And so, there would be these junctures, and all of a sudden everything would be just muddy and unclear. I couldn't figure anything out, and all of a sudden I would just know. And then I would take the steps that I needed, to get him the next level of care that he needed to get, whatever it was. I mean, it was like he needed a wheelchair ramp, and the VA provides those. But nothing was happening. The guy came out, took measurements, nothing's happening. And we were at the VA in Iowa City, and I started asking questions. They directed me to an office, and I talked to this guy, and the next day we had the appointment set for the ramp. We had gotten the approval, but it was like all these things that I knew needed to happen. I had to get them out of the house. I had to get him to the doctor. I need a ramp. And it was like everything was just falling into place. It took a lot of effort, but those who know me, I tend to second guess myself a lot. And I don't remember ever feeling quite as sure about the decisions that I was making and their rightness. And so it would be, and then as my father is going through, his last few weeks, I mean, it was just like, it was really kind of an amazing thing. Yes, I'm sad to lose my father, but I don't really feel like I lost him, but to have him pass from physical life. And so it was like I was in this zone, and where I felt such incredible peace.
Well, you know what might have been happening is maybe both your soul and his soul was cooperating and helping you.
Well, I think so, because my dad and I have had past lives together, and one is when we were actually Knights Templars back in the day. And it was just like this amazing thing. I mean, physically I felt good. I felt like, so I'm sorry it took me so many words to say that, but thanks for asking, JJ.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you.
This area of conversation brings to mind my refrigerator magnet.
Sounds like we're losing audio. Is my audio coming across? I know your audio is, the audio I'm receiving is kind of broken up a bit.
You sound fine to me.
I can hear you fine.
Oh, can you hear me fine, huh? Oh,
I'll try to speak more into the microphone, whatever it takes here.
Yeah.
I was just saying that the topic we're on at the moment reminds me of the refrigerator magnet here that about being in tune.
That was a good idea, Rick.
Yeah. And
the thing about Rick, he comes up with ideas.
when you're in tune with the plan, so to speak, it's just like when you're tuning a guitar. As you get two notes that are getting close to being in tune, when they're slightly off, there's a certain beat that you hear, like wah 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 wah, and when you get them right in tune, that beat stops and it's peace. And we can all hear it, we can all feel that peace when we get in tune. There's just a natural thing that we notice, oh yeah, we're in tune.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I hope when we do the recording, the audio turns out okay. From my end, I don't know if it's something on my computer or what, but
if you're getting like a buzz or static in the background,
yeah, it's not a buzz. It's just
white noise.
The voice is like broken up.
Well, I have a fan. Pulse.
No, not you. I got the same thing from Melva. Let's see. Somebody else talk. Nick, let's see if your voice is broken up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Maybe it's something on my computer. Hopefully the recording will be all right. Anyway, it's time to call it quits anyway, so let's just do the song of 144,000 and we'll end the meeting. Follow along with me. Om. Remember, the Om disperses all negativity, so only the positive vibration remains. Om, 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 om. We thank you, Father, that you have revealed to us your protective universal light, that within this light is complete protection from all destructive forces, that the Holy Spirit of your presence permeates us in the light, and wherever we will, the light to descend. We thank you, Father, that you fill us with your protective fires of love, that within this love is complete protection from all destructive thoughts and feelings, that the consciousness of Christ is lifted up in us in this love, and wherever we will, the love to be inflamed. We thank you, Father, that you are in us and we are in you, that through us your will is sent forth on wings of power, that your purpose is accomplished on earth as it is in heaven, that through us your light and love and power is manifest to all the sons and daughters of mankind. Om, 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 om. Okay, great bunch today, and thanks for your sharing and thanks for your stories. And we will see you next Sunday, all being well.
Maria sent her greetings from Norway. She wanted to make the mating, but she's been having a sore throat problem, and
hello to Maria when she sees this.
She's sort of down for the count, but her spirit is with us, and she wanted me to share that message with the group here.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, we'll and this from Sharon. Bye. Sharon tells us bye, Sharon, and we'll see you all next week then. I'll be posting this shortly.
See you all later.
Thank you, JJ.
Thanks, JJ.